well, you don't look autistic. My initial reaction to this is always, well, you don't look like a dumbass. Obviously, I can't say that out loud because I actually have respect for people. And when people use this phrase of you don't look autistic or you don't seem autistic, you don't act like you have autism, that is just disrespectful to everybody with autism, because what you're saying is that you have this ignorant, negative connotation, a negative stigma on how people with autism should look, should act. And it's just taken away from our identities by saying that if you don't look this certain way that I believe that you should look, then I don't believe you have autism. That's what that phrase means at the very, very core level of it. Even if you think it comes from a good place, saying that to someone with autism is incredibly disrespectful. I don't look like anything other than myself. I look like me. I don't look like autism. I don't look autistic. Nobody does. It's like saying to someone who comes into your house and sets your house on fire, oh, you don't look like a criminal. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Because what does a criminal look like? What does an autistic person look like other than what you have a negative connotation, a negative stigma, a negative idea based on ridiculous depictions of what autism is? My brother's friend's son, he has a friend at school and his brother is autistic, so, I understand. Now, I'm going to lay this one out very quickly. No, you don't understand. It is impossible for someone who isn't autistic to understand what an autistic person goes through. You can have an idea, a concept, you can learn about autism, but even some of the people that I have met that have worked all their life with autistic people who are neurotypical, they still don't understand what it is to be autistic. They just know more than most people. And when you say that you know someone with autism, so that means you understand autism, is disrespectful to the person you're saying it to, but also disrespectful to the person that you think has taught you about autism, because every single person who is autistic, they have different traits, they act differently, things are different from autistic person to autistic person. If you've met one person who's autistic, you've met one person who's autistic. It's as simple as that. Not every single one of us are exactly the same, and insinuating that is disrespectful. It really is, and it sucks. Oh, I'm sorry that you have autism. Why are you sorry that I'm autistic? Like, I'm not. Instead of being apologetic for me, congratulate me, because for 30 years of my life specifically, I didn't know that I had autism. And what that means is that I struggled for 30 years because I wasn't a complete person. I had so many challenges, stress and anxiety for 30 years that it pretty much ruined my entire life. And in the 2 years since I've been diagnosed, everything has started to work out. Things are falling into place and I feel more like a full human being than I ever have before, because autism is my identity. Autism is who I was supposed to be and who I missed out on being because I wasn't diagnosed when I was young. So now that I'm diagnosed, I'm basically a 30-year-old neurotypical person and a 2-year-old autistic person, and I'll take that 2 years over that 30 years every single time, because the answers to the questions that I was asking my entire life was answered with a diagnosis of autism. So please don't feel sorry for me. Congratulate me, support me, cheer me on, because I am more proud of who I am as an autistic person than I ever have been in my entire 30 years of life prior. Hey, do you know he has autism? You have autism. So here we are with the bonus round, and this is called identifying labels, and autistic people work in different ways. Some people like certain things said, other people don't, but generally you don't want to refer to autistic people as person with autism or you have autism. Autism is part of the identity, so people like to be referred to as autistic people or people on the spectrum, depending on how you're addressing people in your conversation. But to say with autism, has autism, you have autism, what that means is, or what that insinuates is, that it's a medical condition that can be cured. Because if you think about it, you say, oh, you have cancer, you have a cold, you have illness in any way, shape or form, because the idea of having something means that it can be taken away. But autism cannot be taken away because it is a lifelong condition. And for most people who are autistic, it is our identity. It's who we are. We don't want it to be cured. We don't want to change it because we are perfect the way that we are. And to use terms like has autism, have autism is kind of just like insinuating that it can be cured, and just kind of disregarding everything that autistic person wants to be. So, you know, if you're worried about it and you don't know what to say, just ask the autistic person you're talking to, and they will tell you how they want to be identified. It's as simple as that. Oh, autism, you must be really good with numbers. Well, personally, I am good with numbers, but just because you watched Rain Man once doesn't mean that every autistic person is good with numbers. Not every autistic person can count cards, and not every autistic person can be used to take to a casino to make you money. If I could do that, if I could count cards, do you think I would take you to the casino? I would take myself to the casino and earn myself some money, not you. Please stop saying it. It's offensive in every way, shape, or form. But I will say that, you know, Dustin Hoffman played that role of Rain Man really well. You know, for the time like when it came out, the years that it came out, there wasn't much information on autism. There was only a stereotypical view of what autism is, and that stereotypical view does exist in this world. There are some people with autism who struggle in the ways that Rain Man struggled. But that doesn't mean everyone with autism is that way. We all have our own challenges, our own struggles, and things of that nature. The problem with that media of that film is that it depicts that all people with autism are low ability and low intelligence and need support and help 24/7 and have a carer around them. But to juxtapose that and make the film kind of tantalizing to watch, they make him be able to have this incredible ability with counting cards and numbers and such things like that. But what you're seeing there is savant syndrome. And what that means is that someone has a higher than above average level of intelligence and capability with certain things. You know, some people might be good at art. Some people might be good at the languages. Some people might be good at football. You know, you're a savant, meaning that you are really, really capable in a certain subject or area. Now, that is closely tied to autism, but it can happen to anybody. You could fall over tomorrow, hit your head, wake up and be able to speak Mandarin, because it's a neurodevelopmental connection to savant syndrome, and autism being a neurodevelopmental disorder means that it can occur more often in autistic people, but it is not the same for everyone. Not every autistic person is a savant in anything. I certainly am not. You know, everyone's a little bit autistic. Now, I kind of agree and disagree with this statement, but I'm just going to put it flat out there, generalize, no, you are not a little bit autistic. What people insinuate with that and what that phrase actually should mean are two very different things. People are kind of like trying to use these autistic traits as a way of explaining something that they struggle with or something that they have done, and then be like, oh, everyone's a little bit autistic, kind of like dismissing what autism is and kind of dismissing their own actions by blaming it on something that they don't have, which is ridiculous. But when we get diagnosed with autism, we have to go in and take various tests and such things. And those tests are there to kind of point out our traits of autism. And that can be social isolation, social awkwardness, social communication issues. It can be anxiety and stress levels, as well as a whole abundance of traits, which I just can't really get into for time purposes. And for people to be diagnosed as autistic, you kind of have to have multiple of those traits and struggle with them on a very, very intense level. So let's just say, for instance, anxiety, social anxiety, not being able to go on like public transport and struggling with that. If a psychologist sees that in you and sees that you struggle with it massively, you know, that is one trait towards your autistic diagnosis. Now, just because you may struggle on a train or a bus or something like that, and you find out that that's an autistic trait, doesn't mean that you're a little bit autistic. It just means that normal human behaviors and normal human condition means that anybody can struggle with a specific thing in life. It just happens that when you're autistic, you struggle with a lot of those things on a very intense level, which is debilitating to your day-to-day living. So, for instance, you may go to work one day and you're struggling, you know, on the bus, but you'll go to work, you'll work all day, you'll come home, you'll sleep it off. You might feel a little bit anxious the next day, but the day after that, you'll be fine. Now, for me, when I go on public transport, especially if I'm going somewhere new, the day before I'm supposed to go on that traveling experience, we'll call it that, I take that trip one day ahead so that I can figure out all the bus routes, figure out where I need to go, see what kind of population is around, how many people are going to be there, how much noise is going to be there. I have to plan these things ahead of time to actually make the trip on the day that I want to make it. Because if I was to just go on the day I was supposed to go, and let's just say the bus broke down or there were screaming kids, I was going to be late, that anxiety would build up so much in me that I would phone up, cancel whatever I was going to, and just go home, because that is how debilitating it can be to people with autism. I should say autistic people. Yeah, autistic people. And you know, all those traits for autistic people can kind of play off each other, and then everything builds up and builds up and builds up until you have what we call a meltdown. Meltdowns can either be like all your emotions just explode and you're just crying for no reason, you're getting angry and anxious and stuff like that, and that meltdown can take 2, 3, 4 weeks to get past, you know. So you could be stuck indoors for 3 weeks because you just can't do it due to the meltdown. Now, someone who struggles with specific traits that autistic people may have, you know, you'll struggle with it for 1, 2 days, maybe you'll struggle again in the future with it, but it's nothing debilitating to your life. And that's kind of the difference between what autism actually is and saying everybody's a little autistic. You know, it takes away from what autistic people go through on a day-to-day basis and trying to just use it as this little kind of phrase or throwaway remark. But it's actually quite upsetting when you hear that as an autistic person. Now, I apologize that this video was kind of serious, but you know, I wanted to make jokes and stuff, but it just didn't feel right, because this stuff needs to be heard in a serious manner, because like things like this that happen and things that people say about autism or to autistic people is why autism never moves forward, or is moving forward at a very, very slow rate, because the world doesn't accept us for who we are. They just have these ideas of us where, you know, we're incapable, or we're dangerous, we're violent, you know, we're going to cause trouble and stress for everyone, that we're not worth investing in. And those negative stigmas and connotations around autism, you know, makes me struggle with life. Like, I've went for job interviews, I've went through the whole interview process, I've even had trial shifts, you know, at the job, and then they call me back in for like a later interview, and when I tell them that I have autism, they phone up the next day and they say, oh, we hired someone else. And that word autism scares people, and you know, I don't want to hide the fact that I'm autistic, so I say it proudly. So I know who I am confident in who I am, I understand autism, but the rest of the world doesn't. So I can't be proud and confident with who I am, because I can't exist in the world as who I am, and it really sucks. And you know, I'm very lucky in my position with autism, and there are a lot of people who are a lot worse off than me in the autistic community. And you know, I just hope that it starts to change. I just hope that people start to think about what they say. I hope that people just start to accept autism. So I hope this video helped in some way, shape or form, and if it did, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, hit the little bell, all that kind of good stuff. Thank you for watching. I've been easynow. You guys have been awesome.